Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us, we have local licensed medical or mental health counselor, and she's also nationally certified as well. And we have Dietz, and she has offices here in Tacoma, Washington, and she has a wonderful topic to share with us tonight. And it is how to love without losing yourself. Thank you so much, Deanne, for joining us.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me. And I love that Marlene has this platform for people who are, just really wanting to grow, but it's just so accessible. I love it. Love the variety on it too. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your donating your time tonight.
Absolutely. So I wanted to do this topic because during the holidays, it's just a really hard time. People's hearts are heavy when they're not partnered or when things aren't going well. And now we have Valentine's Day coming, and it's just in our face. And I watch people, and I've done it myself too in life, but um, want it so bad that we give ourselves away. We either like over accommodate or, wrap our whole lives around somebody. We jump ahead to say like, this is the one. And we fill in the blanks and we think we're going to get so much out of relationships. And it can just lead to such a feeling of defeat and eroding what we feel about ourselves. But it dims our light because more and more then we're not showing up in the world as who we are. We're showing up as what we think we're supposed to be. Every time we get hurt, it's like, oh, well, don't laugh too loud or don't have too many needs. We just get these messages over time. And I'd rather give you some strategies of how to bypass all of that and really get a truly healthy relationship. So I think this is rooted both in our mindset, but today we're going to do a practice just really transforming that fear, that body guidance when it doesn't feel right, then we do those quick fix things, right? Like, I'm afraid to speak up. So, okay, whatever you want. And I'm exaggerating, but that's how it feels inside the body. So we're really going to tune into the body today with a transformational exercise and do that somatic awareness and teach you how to get down in there because that's where it all happens. About 95% of our behavior is driven by unconscious thoughts and conditioning and just automatic things that are in there. So um, we'll do an exercise to help you get connected with that, but then also how to free it. And then during that, you'll be like, but what do I do with that? And that's where the second half of this will be my top 5 strategies. So it's okay, but where can I focus? What's the concrete stuff too? So for those of you that like more clear action oriented, that'll be for you. So one note is during this guided exercise, we are going to see as far as we can go, in the depths of that unconscious. And if you have big T traumas that you haven't worked through and they're there, then I think it's better to maybe take some notes on the exercise or ask yourself some of the questions, but don't do the deep, the floating back, the really like, where'd this come from for today? Certainly leave that to explore with somebody when you have support that you deserve. Okay. So I'm going to screen share. Um, and I have 2 websites. One is Revive Your Relationship, where there's some specific to relationship information. And that's where I'm going to post courses or exercises, things you can get there. And then I also have another website, hearthealing.org. Both of those have their own YouTubes too. And I love putting out kind of the short and sweet because that's how I learn is, don't tell me it all at once. I don't want the big, huge manual. It's like, what do I do about this little thing? So those are on the YouTube channel. So hopefully just more free stuff that you can access and help you along the way. So go ahead and get comfortable. And we're going to dive right in to showing up for yourself, right? So not just your your head, you're gathering information. We can read all sorts of books, we can watch YouTubes and get that. So tonight, my hope is that you get to be really present with yourself. And so, in whatever way you do that, I'm going to start with setting an intention. Like tonight, I'm asking for my best self. I am asking that I just learn and I grow myself out of these old patterns that I do, that I can update my software. Aren't we always doing it? Right? All the growth work I've done, for the first 10, even 15 years, I thought, I'm gonna get there. And now that I've been doing it a long time, I'm like, it gets so much easier and it's so much more gentle, but I sure hope I'm growing the rest of my life. So inviting that intention from within, the part of you that's willing and has the capacity to grow. So tap into what made you sign up for this? What have relationships been like for you? And for now, even though sometimes you might push these parts away, for now we're inviting our enemies to tea, so to speak. We're inviting those insecurities, the hesitations, the shutdown, the overly excited, the one that jumps in and abandons yourself. We're inviting them to tea. Those are the vulnerable parts of self. I'm going to invite you to ask yourself, what am I afraid of in relationship? Am I going to get rejected again? Am I going to feel like a fool? Am I going to, do everything I know to trust this person and then get betrayed? What am I afraid of? And just let that come to the surface. And we don't come up with this stuff for no reason. There's experiences you've had. So see if you can invite in. I have good reason. Like invite in the film reel. Maybe you certainly don't want to relive it, right? Put it on a black and white film reel or put it on a little mini cell phone size, but invite in the evidence. Your fear is not unreasonable. You weren't born that way, right? So just allow the film reels to come. And then I'm going to invite you to hear these words. Hey, sweetie, you have good reason. Like notice as you revisit those film reels, I have good reason to feel this way. And fear, you're not unreasonable. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for reminding me that I felt foolish. Thank you for reminding me that I ditched my family. I didn't hang out with my friends. I left all my hobbies in that last relationship. Oh, and please, thanks for reminding me that I left the dog home alone. Like, thanks for trying to protect the dog and really reconnect me to, like, that's not who I am. And so, in your own way, notice the list that comes up. Notice the body and what you're feeling in the body. And you've likely already started to feel this, but notice when you review these experiences you've had, notice when you're at your worst, how it makes you feel about yourself. And these, my friend, are the reasons why we end up losing ourselves in relationship because we never want to experience these, right? Like, oh, I was so stupid. And so then we try really hard in the next relationship. Or I can't trust myself, so I'll go ask all my friends what they think. I'm not good enough, so, I'm not going to ask for too much in this relationship. So notice the ones that you relate to. Now, these are just beliefs, but boy, are they powerful. I'm, I'm sure you wouldn't be here if you didn't know this, right? It's just honoring the power of these beliefs. These have run your life. So notice how you react. And maybe you just relate to one of these. That's totally fine. This list is to be more comprehensive. But say, when I feel not good enough, how do I react to that? I don't speak up. Um, I defer to what that person wants to do. I make sure I pay half for everything, or I plan a bunch of amazing dates and I talk about myself to make sure they know that I'm worthwhile. So notice how you react, which again is not who you are. It's hard to separate sometimes because we've done these behaviors and we're like, oh man, I'm such a loser. I feel that way. It's not necessarily true. We'll work on that. But notice the ones that you relate to. So maybe you've gotten really vulnerable and you've trusted someone, and so then you share your emotions and you share vulnerabilities like, oh, I just screwed that up at work today. But then they use it against you, right? And they're like, well, you're not a very good communicator. Remember that thing that happened at work? So, I'm the better communicator here. And sometimes it's used as manipulation. And so then we don't trust ourselves. See this loop? It's like we have these experiences. It causes us to feel a certain way about us because thinking mind is concluding, like, okay, this must be because I'm not capable. This must be because I'm not relationship material. Something's wrong with me. See, we hate uncertainty. So the thinking mind, it's our rational, but see, it's being irrational. So I call it thinking mind. Like our thinking mind thinks that it can help us solve this by concluding about ourselves. Like, okay, here's the problem. You're just too much. But that's the wrong department because when it's relationships, when it's emotion, when it's the stuff coming from our unconscious, that's supposed to be our emotional intelligence that's running the show. But we end up emotionally reacting to it, a lower level part of our mind. And then we do these kind of behaviors. For any of you that have done trauma work or have been diving into self-help, you probably have a sense of where these came from. But these strategies are things that we've been doing a long time. And it may have been that in your household growing up, not speaking up worked really well. Maybe being perfect, right? Having no needs, just getting good grades and following all the rules and not being a bother. Then maybe you got to hang out with the people you cared about instead of getting sent away or shamed. And so these strategies work really well. You wouldn't have done these strategies if they weren't well rehearsed, right? If they didn't at least give you the perception that they were working at some point. Okay, so what do you do with all this, right? Now that we've stirred it all up, just noticing when I'm at my worst, I do these behaviors. Now let's try to get some wisdom out of them. And we're going to do a few different things. So it's okay if it doesn't immediately come to you as an aha and a magic wand to change them, but just start with for a moment. When I'm reacting this way, like when I'm trying to be perfect, what am I really trying to get? Approval, for example, to be included. What's the positive intention of these behaviors? Maybe if I'm not too much, I feel more acceptable. Maybe then I get support because I kind of downgraded what I need. I barely ask for anything. So when I do, maybe I get it. The sad reality is that when we downgrade our needs, we tend to attract or accept people in our life that don't do much for us. So then when we do have a big need, they're thrown off. They're used to not being available to us. And this is that mind trap. It's such a loop. And then maybe then we're not at our best. We lose our cool, trying to keep it clean here. And maybe we yell or we have a meltdown. And then we feel even worse about ourselves because it's the wrong department that's trying to get what we need. But see if you can sense, is it approval I'm looking for, or to be validated, or to feel like I'm good enough? If you feel like you want to write some of these down, feel free. Also doing your best to not take yourself out of it. What's my positive intention of this behavior? And we can play with this a little bit more is I want the approval so that I feel good enough. I want acceptance so that I'm included, so that I feel like I'm worthwhile. All of that is incredibly disempowering. Can feel so defeated. It draws our energy because we're giving everything we have and we're not getting much in return. We tend not to get, if it is, it's short-lived, right? We be perfect, we suppress our needs, and people are happy with us, but then there's an emotional toll, so it's draining us. So we want to take our power back. And you might feel triggered with this next part. And I invite you to just stay curious, like, oh, that's interesting, my reaction. But I want you to rephrase this into, I have chosen to believe that I am not good enough. Let's soften that for a moment. I've chosen to fall into the misunderstanding. I've chosen to believe these thoughts about myself. And perfectly reasonable. I've chosen to feel this way because I've had these experiences. They seem to reinforce pretty clearly I'm not very good at this. And then I feel even more worthless or not good enough or unacceptable, which then causes more of those reactions. They can feel as strong as like a drug addict, right? Like, but I have to say yes, or I can't share that with them. They'll go away. We do this unconsciously. But let's just try out those words. I have chosen to believe that I am not relationship material. I have chosen to believe that my picker is broken. I've chosen to believe that if I let myself get close, then I'll get hurt. That's your thinking mind trying to make sense of this pain. And I think of it as like going to the mechanic to get your teeth cleaned. It's the wrong department. It doesn't mean that you're at fault and you can't figure it out. It just means the wrong person, the wrong part of you is in charge in there. So let's play with this for a minute. If a child was a pleaser, if a child was, a good kid and followed all the rules and didn't have any needs, or didn't seem to, and, didn't have any meltdowns and just went along with everything, would you be saying it's their fault or that they're bad and unacceptable or unworthy? Or would you feel for them? Would you have empathy and compassion like, oh my gosh, child, this is so sad that you have learned you're not going to get your needs met, and so you've shut them down. It's a sad reality that you've learned that um, that people react to your emotions. So you thought that you're too much, but no, it's not true. Can we have some of that compassion for yourself? The reason we use the words I've chosen is for you to take that back, to claim that, like, oh, this is something that my thinking mind, my mind has done. It's a mind trap, but this is just a function of my mind. It doesn't mean it's true. Because if you wouldn't say it's true about your best friend or a child that's not getting the love they deserve, then it's probably not true about you. You need to take your power back. So instead of the fear causing you to follow outdated strategies, We want to update them. We want this fear to become like an internal guidance system. And here's one way to do it. From the highest and best part of you, the part that would be treating a child this way or talking to your best friend who's had tough relationships. Hearing the words, I forgive myself for buying into the belief, and then fill in the blank, that I'm not good enough. I forgive myself for buying into the belief that I'm no good at this or that I'm unacceptable. I forgive myself for buying into the belief that my needs are too much. If I knew better, I would have done better. I forgive myself for the conditioning, like all those experiences that caused me to get stuck into this mind trap. I did the best I could with what I had. This part of you, we tend to like push it away and hate on it. Has that ever worked? I mean, maybe you criticize people sometimes, but does that even work? Would you hate on a child or your friend to try to encourage them to change a behavior? But we hate on ourselves, don't we? So it's a mind trap. I did the best I could. These parts, instead of being hated on, deserve mentoring. And it's counterintuitive a bit because we tend to think if I need to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I just need to stop doing this. I just need to quit doing that behavior. But it's actually love and compassion, because hate does not motivate change. And it doesn't help us be our authentic self. If we're so afraid that we're going to make a wrong move, we're not being our authentic self. So even if you meet somebody who's amazing, or you're in relationship already with somebody who's amazing, we won't be our authentic self because we don't trust. It's almost like, well, if they really find out who I am, imposter syndrome, right? I have to keep performing because if they knew the real me, if they knew my real thoughts, and so then we keep pretending. Self-compassion, when you do it for yourself, you're already then learning how to be in a healthier relationship, because when you do it for yourself, you'll naturally do it for partners. So if you're afraid that you're going to become selfish, somebody asked the question like, well, how do I make space for all my, needs here and for my partner? But when you're doing it for yourself, you will naturally have it available for your partner. When you're in balance, there's more of you here to be present and attending to others, but it starts at home. It's the inner work. About honestly, relationships, as much as I've coached relationships, it's 80% the individual, right? We have to get straight within ourselves. So notice the word, I can learn to mentor and nurture myself. And it's okay if you have reaction to that. Just notice it and be curious. I can learn. And I'm teaching you some right now. You can re-listen to this and you can continue to expand it. So here's an example. Say originally your fear was, I'm going to get rejected, because I have been. I've really, I thought something was going great and then all of a sudden I get ghosted. So I fear rejection. Well, that is your guidance. The wisdom of the fear is to know your worth and who you are. So it starts to guide you to like, what is it I really need? How do I need to be mentored to never experience that again? The pain of that again. You'll probably get rejected sometime in your life. You're probably not for everybody. But how do you keep it from being so painful? Another example is like if you fear that you're going to ditch your hobbies or your friends or your family or your dog, then we need to get stronger in like, how do I stay balanced? How do I have boundaries? And one example is to create like a pie chart of all your different values, the things that matter to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the top 5. But even say having a pie chart and then noticing like how much is each pie section of the pie filled in? Am I really staying balanced, or is it all relationship? Another example is if you fear that you'll keep people at arm's length, right? You can't trust them to take care of yourself, then that's probably a sign of, oh, I need to learn better boundaries and learn better negotiating. So it's okay if these aren't magically appearing for you. We're planting seeds, and we're going to do another exercise to just see if we can help surface like, what is it I'm really trying to get here? Those bad behaviors, those unhelpful behaviors are actually trying to get you something. And we just need to go nurture those parts and say, oh, sweetie, perfectionist or pleaser, like, oh, I know you really want to feel loved, huh? Let me show you the way. And we'll help them get healthier ways. And here's another exercise. When we spend time getting really clear about what do I really want, it's focused attention, so it's based in neuroscience. So instead of focusing on like when you're first learning, or when you're riding a bike, don't hit that rock, right? Or don't hit that curb. Where's our focus? And so we're more likely to do that behavior because our brain can't help but picture that thing. So instead of, don't screw up, don't be too much, um, don't, overly accommodate. Instead, we need to start switching. Like, but what is that? So if it's, wait a minute, I'm being inauthentic when I'm trying to please somebody and I'm just going by what their needs are, the opposite of that is, oh, I want a relationship where I can be myself. Maybe you've been told you're too needy, clingy, and so you want to be in a relationship where you get to see that person as much as it fulfills you. And the balance of that I also have time for my friends, that I'm filling myself up with things that interest me and that keep me interesting. So instead of fearing like, oh, I'm going to be boring, don't be boring. Oh, I'm going to take time to fill myself with just random YouTube searches or things that I find interesting, or playtime with friends, or spontaneous, hobby engagement. So if you want to write this down, feel free, but notice like, what is it I really want from relationship? This is another way to take your power back. When we've tried so hard and it's not working, we can feel more and more powerless and more like meeting somebody is just going to be up to chance. But the truth is, the more we're caring for ourselves and the more that we're clear about where we want to go, then the more we're opening up those possibilities for ourselves. So you might start it with, I get to do this, or I get to be these things about myself. I get to be playful and fun and dancy and unfiltered. So let's just take at least one of these for a moment, pick one, and then see if you can play it out even further. Like play a video clip of what would it feel like in your body if you're just being yourself? Or maybe you pick, I have time for my hobbies and I'm in relationship. Play that out as a video clip, as if, what if I could? What if I could feel balanced? What if I could figure out how to nurture a relationship and myself? And for some of you, maybe it's even, what if I could figure out what matters to me? Because you've spent so much of your time and energy focused on what you had to do for others that you haven't been like occupied in your body to know what's important to you. What if? And try to feel that in your body. And let's take this a little further. If I got that, then I would get to feel, notice sensations, but how I could experience myself is like if I'm taking time for hobbies, then I experience myself as like, hey, my needs matter. If I'm taking time to maybe on Sunday nights um, do my meal planning and grocery shopping and stuff instead of attending to that other person, then maybe I feel worthwhile. If I am able to stay balanced with my goals, meaning that I spend some time on friends and I spend some time on being of service and spend some time on pursuing my career so I feel balanced, then I'm probably going to feel more interesting and worthwhile. Notice what it is for you and consider writing that down. We're showing your unconscious mind what is possible. Your conscious mind is mentoring the parts of you that just haven't gotten to learn this yet. So if while you're writing, you want to tune me out, it's totally fine. If you don't have anything to write, then I'm just going to give another example here. So let's take if one of your negative beliefs about yourself, because thinking mind has concluded, I must not be relationship material because things haven't worked out. Just seems clear, then I'm not good at this. So then I'm afraid of getting in relationship, or I'm afraid of having any needs because I'm just going to be let down. What is that fear showing you? It's likely showing you a skill deficit, which doesn't mean a deficit in who you are, right? It's, oh, wait a minute. I probably haven't learned healthy skills for relationships. Think back to your childhood or some of your models, and perhaps it's a no brainer for you to have some compassion. So if you don't feel good at it, then what do you do about it? Hey, there are some great experts. The Gottmans come to mind. John and Julie Gottman have tons of materials that are like, how do I do relationships? How do I be healthy in relationships? Stan Tacton is another expert in relationships. He's the attachment guy. So really learning that, oh, it's our, if we didn't get enough love and attention as a child, then we likely seek somebody who we either try to win them over so that they'll finally give us enough love or attention, or we might attract ourselves to a narcissist who at first pours attention on us and says, oh, you're the most amazing thing ever because we're serving their needs. And so that burns out. But um, so understanding that is a way to bypass it. Another of my favorite is Robert Augustus Masters. He has books and some audio tapes, but Transformation Through Intimacy, awesome book. David Data um, can feel edgy for some people, but I think is a great way to notice those energies and what's going on. So I could start with the belief I'm not relationship material, and I can just stay looped in that and have bad experiences and then say, see, and then do the behaviors like maybe um, disappear and not have needs, or pout or push the person away. Um, and and then that reinforces like, see, I can't do relationships. Or I can let that mentor say like, oh, hey, I think we need to learn some skills. Let's get on some newsletters. Let's take the Art and Science of Love, I think is the Gottman's program. Get on YouTube. There's all sorts of great programs. On my website, I have Love and Happiness, how to find both. And so ways to develop myself so that I have those skills. The Transformation Through Intimacy, Robert Masters does a great job of talking about interdependence. So how do I not be so independent that I'm living a parallel life with somebody, like everything's kind of flat and even and balanced, and we talk about work and our tasks, and but there's not that passion. But I'm also not codependent where I need them to feel good, or I seek their approval to feel okay about myself. What's the healthy interdependent? So it's the unconscious, those limiting beliefs and the fear that tricks you into thinking that it's a flaw in you rather than like, these aren't skills I've learned yet. And so the more that we have a conscious goal, we're showing from a conscious place our thinking mind, like, hey, here's how you can help me. You can sign me up for a class, or you can run me through this course, or you can get me to therapy to help me clear out some of these limited beliefs, so that I'm not stumbling over myself so much. And then that conscious goal helps us notice, like, what are my hobbies? And it starts moving you in that direction. How can I live my values and feel like I'm significant and my needs matter? So go ahead and write down anything else before we shift into the next part of this. Any insights you've had, any commitment to self. I'm gonna try to expose myself to learning some new things instead of just beating myself up that I don't know them. And if something's come up where you don't know where to find that resource, or you know something about yourself and you're like, I don't even know where to begin, then I'm happy to do a quick call with you and brainstorm. Now I'm going to give you 5 more strategies because we tend to be more forgiving of ourselves. Like earlier when we did that forgiveness exercise, you may have felt resistance to it. But the more that we have conscious activities that we can do, the more that we can be like, okay, well, I can give myself grace for that because I'm transforming it. So, number one, some of these are going to sound really basic. It's true. Know yourself. It is such a basic concept, but if we're not occupying our body, like if we picture your whole body like a gingerbread man picture, and then create puzzle pieces, like 10 different puzzle pieces. If we haven't filled that in with something, then we're more likely to attract people who assume things about us or expect things of us because we're not occupying ourselves. We're not hey, this is my perspective, my opinion, what I stand for, how I show up in the world. And it just makes us more vulnerable to manipulation or unhealthy relationships. So if you picture your knowing yourself as puzzle pieces, what do I know about how I problem solve? Oh, I need to know big picture and then I can do details. Or what do I know about what my purpose is? Well, I feel the best when I'm in service of others, but I also know my shadow side. So I know that I'll give, give, give. So I need to practice and keep myself in balance with hobbies and letting people give to me. One tool to get to know yourself is the Myers-Briggs personality assessment. So you can go to 16personalities.com and it's one of the free versions. And one of the biggest things for me was I didn't, before I knew what an introvert was, I always thought, oh, I'm just shy or I don't try hard enough or gosh, I think I like people. But man, I can be really selective in who I want to hang out with or boy, I love that friend, but that was exhausting. Uh-oh, maybe I'm a bad friend. And then I found out, no, I'm just an introvert. So doing something like the Myers-Briggs can give us permission to be more ourselves, but it also helps us communicate more when we're getting to know somebody. Hey, I'm a real planner. And so I've already got my weekend, my next 2 weekends planned out. If you'd like to hang out, I'd love to, but it'd be great for me to know at least a few days ahead of time. And then you own your stuff when if they contact you on the Friday before the weekend and you judge them as so frivolous and maybe they don't care about you, that you challenge that because maybe they're a prospector, which is the opposite of a planner, the J's on the Myers-Briggs. So getting to know yourself not only helps you kind of fill yourself up and like really take a stand for who you are, but it helps you navigate those limited beliefs too. The other is it can help us take accountability for, so I'm a dreamer. I love to imagine and fantasize. And so then you first meet somebody and you're already picking out the house you're going to live in or that they're good parenthood material. And so being able to balance that with like, okay, but what do I know about them today? And how do I keep this about right now so that I'm present to noticing um, how they conduct themselves and are they a good listener and do our values match enough? Maybe also if you're the dreamer or the spontaneous planner and you know that about yourself, you can also take responsibility and you set your phone alarm, 5 days ahead of time. Like, hey, have I reached out to that person I want to hang out with this weekend, or I'm at work and I have a date tonight. So 3 p.m. the phone goes off. Like, remember, you're leaving on time today, so that you're not, um, thinking that you're really invested in this relationship, but then making excuses and being defensive. Like, oh, but I had to stay late for work and then there was traffic, and like, no, own that stuff. So knowing yourself can lead to what I'd call mental discipline. That's part of knowing yourself and being able to manage yourself. Another part of mental discipline is, like we've talked earlier, all those beliefs. It's getting to know what your automatic negative thoughts are. So, for example, a lot of people personalize. Personalize and guilt tripping seem to be pretty common. So, the world revolves around us, right? Like, doesn't it? Like, every single one of us, even me right now, right? I'm doing this because I felt called, but it's because I love being in service. So it's serving me too. And I love when I'm around people who are self-conscious. And so I'm contributing to what I want. It's self-serving. But when we know this about ourselves, we can catch them. So the automatic negative thoughts, somebody changes plans last minute, or they didn't follow through on a plan, we can personalize that back to, up, I'm not worthwhile. And so when we know what automatic negative thoughts are, stinking thinking, they've also been called, um, or the other mind traps, then we can catch and go, wait a minute, is my thinking mind just doing that patterned thinking, that habitual thinking, or is there real evidence here? What other evidence is there? And then last, or another piece of knowing yourself is knowing your emotions, and like knowing your emotional self. And so maybe you're somebody that is really comfortable with emotional expression. And so you share with people openly, like, oh, that made me so sad. Well, maybe you're talking to somebody that, when you say you're sad, they feel responsible, or they want to fix you, or they think you're not a very grateful person because they do something completely different with their emotions. And so just knowing that helps you manage and make space for it. Like, hey, I'm feeling sad about something and I'd love to share, but I'm also going to take care of myself tonight. Like, so you're being clear and boundaried around what you're asking for from them. But in some ways, you're also saying, so don't try to fix me. Don't, I'm not looking to problem solve, just looking to hear me. So when we occupy ourselves, then when we attract people, they're more likely to know who we are authentically, right? Instead of kind of fill in the blanks because we're doing that reactive stuff of pleasing or deferring to them. And then later, when we have needs and we want to speak up for ourselves, they could feel betrayed, or um, like, this is not who I thought you were. And then conflict starts. The second one is know what matters to you, which is a little bit different. So, know yourself is like, what are my traits? What are my tendencies? Um, what are my, um, I don't know, like, introvert versus extrovert? Am I a thinker or am I a feeler? Am I a dreamer or am I really grounded? So knowing what matters to you is more about, what are your values? So an easy way to know this is, think about something that pissed you off in the last week. Just randomly, anything. An example I'll give is when somebody slams on their brakes and then they put their blinker on. I'm like, oh, thanks for the notice. Right? Like, because I value safety. And part of that, take your power back, right? I could be like, people, it's not safe, and then get all flustered. Or, wait a minute, I want to be safe, so I'm going to give enough distance because that happens. You're taking your power back. But think about something that pissed you off, or just something that really warmed your heart. And that's going to give you clues, just like fear can give you clues of things you need. That things that make you angry can give you a clue of what your values are, what matters to you. Because when we're living our values, that means we've got a roadmap for our decisions. We're more decisive. We take up more space, back to that. And when we're living our values, happiness goes up. I've worked with so many people when I was doing leadership coaching that like had, lots of money, and they had freedom because they could, put their kids through school and fly around the world and do all these things, but they weren't really happy because they weren't living their values. They were good at something, That's different, right? Your strengths are different than your values. Sometimes they overlap. Maybe you're really good at organizing and you value, it makes you feel really calm and good when you can organize things. Sometimes it's opposite. You might be really good at cleaning up after people, right? Details and organizing, but it makes you resentful. Then it's not your value to be a support person in that way. So here's some other examples. If you value family, then maybe you make sure you go to Thursday night dinner with the family. Or if you value your health, you make sure you're getting movement. So when a friend calls and says, "Hey, do you want to have dinner?" Maybe you say, "How about we walk instead?" That's how your values guide your decision making. Maybe you value um, your religious community, and so you make time for going to church on Sundays, even if a new person in your life isn't a churchgoer. You honor your values, and this is how we find our tribe. The more that you're aligned with your values, not only will you just be happier and therefore feel more worthwhile, but we sort out, like we weed out the people who aren't our people. So if your value is respect and something went wrong with the order at the restaurant, and so they leave no tip, maybe that violates your value of respect, and so you note to self like, this may not be my kind of person. Not to be all or nothing, because that would be an automatic negative thought, but you just start to notice these things in the beginning. So when we know what we value, back to that pie chart, right? We can fill that in: health, community, um, personal growth, emotional, mental balance, financial stability. Um, those then start to guide our decisions, and then we take up space as more of our authentic self, which then repels even sometimes people who are not the right people for us. But then when we're also doing what we love, we become more attractive because we have more glow. We are more interesting, right? We're not just sitting at home watching TV every night. We're engaging in things that matter to us. Okay, so it's number one and two. Number three, develop your spiritual self. Now that can be a sticky point for some people. So this might be like, take time to walk in nature and watch already the spring blooms are coming up, and notice, like, how amazing is that? It was -8 degrees when I was up in the mountains a couple weeks ago, and the crocuses are coming up, and so even through the snow, and so it awakens this part of you, like it helps expand you to be connected to something greater than just your own thoughts and your own priorities and work. It's like, what more is there in life? So spiritual in a very broad way. But this can expand even into resourcing yourself. For example, I was on a hike one time, and the tree had gotten knocked over, and so its roots were sticking out. But enough root, just a couple roots were down in the ground, that at the end of that tree, it was starting to go back up. It had started to grow back up to the sun. And what an inspiration that was, right? Like, man, as much as I can get knocked down, like, I want to be like that tree. So whether it's in your meditation state or prayer, channeling love and light from the universe, whatever your way is, it raises our vibration, it expands us, it helps us not feel so alone, which then makes us less vulnerable to attention getting behavior, or like needy, clingy, prematurely attaching to somebody, and helps us attract a healthier relationship. All sorts of things from your spiritual, deeper presence, feeling safe in the world, knowing you're okay just as you are because you're loved. Like, the trees don't judge you. Go to the woods. They'll show you how to be flexible, how to adapt in the weight of the snow on them. They have heavy burdens, and they still bounce back. Some of their limbs might break off, but they stand tall anyway. Or pray or do devotional in your way. Keep yourself connected. Number 4, any of you who have done self-help stuff, this is probably on every single list, but it's backed by neuroscience and I'm going to link it to it. Makes you more attractive. So be grateful, practice gratitude. When we're grateful, it helps with confirmation bias. So again, that negative, the limited thinking is going to focus on the negative. Our minds are trained to focus on threat. If while I'm giving this presentation, there's a snake on the floor, like it's good that I be distracted by that. But our we're not caveman days anymore, right? So, but our brains haven't really caught up. So we're so vigilant to things like lack of approval or rejection or what other people are going to think. And we get comparisonitis. We go on social media and we see the little snippets of what people want to present, and we feel threatened by that. And so we want to balance that with like, what do I have? What is available right now? So not gratitude of, I got that raise, so now I'll be able to pay off the house and have security. It's what about right now? How can you enjoy the flavors and layers that you put into the cooking right now, which wakes up your senses, which makes you a more sensual being, which leads us into the last one. That number 5 is improve your relationship with your body. So allow yourself to move. If you don't like what your body looks like or feels like right now, then dance in the dark. Like allow it to move and feel good. Stretch it where it wants to be stretched. Even more, you might check in with yourself and just as much as you want your intuition or your gut check about people you're meeting, gut check, do I want this food or this food? Like which one's going to make me feel better? Which one has the vibration that I want to feel right now? In relation to your body also, like does how you do your hair and makeup or how you shave and what you put on your clothing, like even the colors, the textures, does it match the vibration that instead of goes with that limited thinking that goes more with your conscious goal? Like I want to feel flowy. Okay, then what clothing, what hairstyle, or maybe no makeup, right? Maybe you just let it all natural. What goes with that? To feel being yourself, that's attractive. When you know who you are, when you speak your values, when you're grateful, when you can tap into the power of the universe or the love, the divine, God's love and light, that all lifts your energy and allows you to be more attractive, but more confident, take up more space, and therefore be your authentic self. So far, I want you to think about what's one thing I can do, one manageable thing. It may even be like right now for my body, I'll take a deeper breath, or I'll, even while I'm sitting, I'll do kind of a cat cow with my chest, kind of open it up and just be here right now. What's one thing you can do? But I invite you to write that down because we're 42% more likely to do it if we write it down. What's one way you want to commit to yourself? Do you want to get on YouTube and say, how to find a healthy relationship? Or um, what is a quality woman? Or what's it like to be a quality man? My wish for you is that you can access a deeper sense of confidence within yourself about who you are. And that's how we stay grounded and don't lose ourselves in relationship. But beyond just not losing ourselves, it's about feeling amazing and taking up space and being who you're meant to be in this world. And that's what will help you attract your right tribe, like regardless of who you're with, because sometimes it will feel crappy. Sometimes you'll start to get to know somebody, and yet are we supposed to know it's going to work out unless we spend time with them, right? So we get down the road maybe 2 3 months into it and then we're like, oh, maybe they're not who I want to be with. Well, the more present we are to ourselves, the more we'll recognize whether they're aligning with our values or not, or whether we can be ourselves or not. And so the quicker we'll be able to say like, okay, this isn't for me. But when we're desperate for attention and approval and we've been tricked by those negative beliefs, then we go into the old behaviors. And that's why we want the conscious goals right there. Like post that maybe in your closet or where you brush your teeth. I want to be in a relationship where I can be myself. I still see my friends. I feel financially stable, so I'm not paying for everything, right? That somebody can balance my lifestyle. Um, it's maybe I'm looking at what I offer. So being clear about that conscious goal. When you take time to commit to yourself, people feel that. You'll attract other people who are also taking care of yourself. And you know what? You'll repel people who expect you to be there just for them. So sometimes people, the the best manipulators, I feel for them because they've probably been doing it since they were children, trying to get their needs met. But the best manipulators will say things like, "Well, I thought you were, a kind person, or I thought you say you want to be there for people, but I want you to be there for me right now, and you're saying no." That can be tricky. But if you're balanced, then you'll catch it and you'll be like, "Oh, this person expects me to sacrifice myself. This isn't a negotiation. This is cross the line into, violating my boundaries or not honoring my values or getting me to be imbalanced. Like, alarm, alarm, get away from that." Okay. So I hope that these have given you a place to start. If you want deeper, then on the website there's the course that Love and Happiness, How to Find Both. And I was going to have a 30-day reset for recharge for relationships done today. It'll be done by Valentine's Day. It keeps growing because there's all sorts of different aspects I want to just nurture the relationship. But whether you're in relationship or not, that might be a fun way to have another summary of like, what does it look like to be in a healthy relationship? So I hope this has served you. And from my heart to yours, just be yourself. The best thing any of us can do, right? All just be the light we are in the world. I know your time is precious. And thank you for spending this hour with me. I hope it was worthwhile to you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, Deanne. That was beautiful.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to also say thanks for being you and sharing your knowledge and loving expertise with us. You are a true blessing here in the community. And for those who are watching on the replay or now, definitely reach out to Deanne and check out her website for all the resources for more loving knowledge. So um, we're gonna say goodbye to all of our Facebook Live friends, but keep the Zoom meeting open. And we thank you for watching. And thank you for being you.